With many of us still in COVID mode, video games in 2021 once again provided a much needed emotional outlet. This year, we had some great titles on all platforms, but let's be honest, we also had some major disappointments. To be clear, these were games that actually weren't always bad. In fact, many of them were quite solid. It was more that they just weren't as fantastic as we were hoping. They might have done some things well, but they didn't live up to the massive excitement and hype we felt for them before release. So come along with us at COGconnected as we take a look at the 10 most disappointing video games of 2021. Aliens is among the most beloved of pop culture franchises, and we had high hopes for Aliens Fireteam Elite. And to be fair, it isn't a terrible game. COGconnected's own review touched on the fun co-op gameplay, and the game did right by the franchise's lore and tone. But still, it felt like a letdown due to some glaring issues. First of all, the repetitive and boring level design killed any replay value, and the addition of punishing roguelike elements didn't help matters much. Plus, the game's utterly incompetent AI companions made single player a frustrating slog, all but forcing you to play on casual if you wanted to survive the end game. In short, Aliens Fireteam Elite was okay, but we expected so much more from a game with such an impressive and lauded pedigree. In 2019, Back 4 Blood was announced and immediately had us anticipating its release. It was from the original creators of Left 4 Dead, and who doesn't love Left 4 Dead? And upon its release this year, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't as great as we dreamed it would be. That wasn't just due to the usual launch bugs either, of which there were many. It was also a host of other technical issues that made playing Back 4 Blood less than thrilling. Whether it be the oddly pointless single-player campaign, the unbalanced difficulty modes, or the broken enemy spawning system, this is one game that had so many problems that even the diehard fans of the zombie genre among us were left scratching their heads. While developers Turtle Rock Studios worked hard to fix the game, Back 4 Blood just wasn't the bloody good time we were expecting. Long in development and delayed by COVID, Amazon's New World had us really looking forward to delving into its massive sandbox MMO experience. But upon launch this year, it left us disappointed for a number of reasons. Our own review gave the game decent marks, but lamented its lack of originality and the fact that the endgame seemed to have been purposely designed to be a slow grind. And of course, there have also been some fundamental problems that still continue to plague the game. We often had trouble joining overloaded servers, and the economy tanked due to item and gold duping exploits. Clearly, we're not alone. While there are still lots of players enjoying New World, the hordes of excited early fans have dwindled, and its daily player count has dropped dramatically since launch. This year's installment of the action shooter series failed to impress us, despite being a solid game in many respects. Call of Duty Vanguard just didn't add much new to the series, and it felt lackluster. Returning to its World War II roots, Vanguard maybe played things a bit too safe, and the single-player campaign felt paint by numbers, with flat characters and little reason to care about them. Multiplayer also suffered from frustrating spawning bugs that put you in awkward, confusing situations. Then there's the all-important zombie mode, which seemed to get little love from the devs either at launch or in post-launch updates. Put it all together, and Call of Duty Vanguard's admittedly robust content just didn't push the series forward the way we were hoping this year. In July, we were excited about Konami's announcement that they were rebranding Pro Evolution Soccer as EFootball and making it free. But right away, we started to worry when an early performance test demo looked less than stellar. And when we got to see the full version in October, boy were we shocked. And we don't just mean by the horrifying visual bugs that went viral on the internet, of distorted player faces and flailing body movements. It was also the mechanics of the game. The passing was awful and the shooting was imprecise, killing the realism that had made PES a superior football sim to EA's series. Plus, the paltry number of teams made eFootball feel like another demo, making us wonder why Konami even decided to release the game in such an unfinished state. This was one promising video game that massively underdelivered this year. "12 Minutes" had a simple premise that instantly caught our imagination. Stuck in a Groundhog Day time loop, you play a man who must somehow stop his wife's murder, and end their repeating nightmare. It also had an impressive voice cast, including James McAvoy and William Dafoe, and the possibility of endless narrative outcomes, mostly ending in your death. But it all just wasn't as mind-blowing in practice as in concept. Maybe it was the often obtuse puzzle elements that encouraged random solutions, or maybe it was the brutal, relentless darkness of the story, which started to grate after the 20th, 30th, or 100th repeat. Whatever it was, despite our hopes for an amazing, revolutionary game, 12 Minutes was, in the end, just an okay point-and-click adventure. When word dropped of possible latest-gen remakes of Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, our reaction was joyous. After all, the Sword and Shield remake had brought a lot of fresh improvements to that classic, but our high hopes were quickly dashed when Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl released this year. Mostly it was the visuals, which made the odd choice of combining the original aesthetics with some new elements that just didn't mesh together. Our own reviewer mentioned that the different and conflicting visual approaches in the game created a jarring, confusing final product. On top of that, the music suffered from much the same problem, with old tunes ported over to the Switch in a way that never quite felt right. While it was admittedly still fun to play, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl on the Switch represent a rare case of a remake that actually felt worse than the original. Speaking of remakes, Diablo 2 Resurrected was another title this year that sought to bring back a beloved classic for the new generation. The original was one of the most iconic action RPGs of all time, and we had huge hopes for this remake. But the released version made some questionable design choices, most notably keeping that same old frustratingly restrictive inventory, and still not letting you stack multiple items. Classes were still unbalanced, and moving your character was just as clunky as you remember. To add to the woes, matchmaking was near impossible due to an outdated lobby system, especially on the Switch version. While the visuals were nicely updated while keeping the flavor of the original, and the game was admittedly a nostalgic good time in many ways, Diablo 2 Resurrected failed to recapture the magic that stole so many hours of our lives all those years ago. Talk about pedigrees. Balan Wonderworld was supposed to be an amazing game since it was from Square Enix and had two veterans of the Sonic franchise and Nights into Dreams behind it. Its early trailers looked good, and if nothing else, this was a game that promised a fresh and original 3D platforming experience. But in March when it released, it fell far short of expectations. Our own reviewer panned Balan Wonderworld's dated, even PS2 era platforming mechanics that frequently ruined all the colorful fun. Plus, there were some quirky design choices that too often just felt tedious. For example, many obstacles were hard to overcome due to the game's insistence that you wear the correct attire. We have to applaud the developers for trying something new and original, but Balan Wonderworld is maybe a game that needed to be a bit less wacky and zany and more fundamentally sound. Outriders is a particularly sad case because it seemed like developers People Can Fly really tried. Working hard to listen to what fans wanted, they released a very generous free demo in February and took pains to be fully transparent about the game's progress. It felt that maybe this game would be different and set itself apart from all the other uninspired looter shooters of the past. But in the end, when the game launched, all of that effort still seemed to result in a mostly generic offering that, according to our review, just didn't make much impact. The narrative was thin and lacking, especially in the endgame, and the gameplay was a grindy loot fest that bogged us down with the same inventory management issues that plagued other games. In short, despite its attempts to set itself apart, Outriders ended up being not too much different from Destiny 2 or Warframe, or all the other looter shooters that we've already seen, and will likely see in the future. And that was a major disappointment indeed. Well, there you have it, the video games of 2021 that disappointed us the most. How about you? What games let you down in the past year? Let us know your thoughts below, and as always, stay tuned to COGconnected for all your video game needs.